bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, Brewers Outlet, and NIL Game Changers. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
And we welcome everybody to the show today. Opening half hour of the show brought to you by NIL Game Changers, the ultimate destination for name, image, and likeness opportunities. Doesn't matter whether you're an athlete or a business, they'll help you. Begin your journey today at nilgamechangers.org. Chris Wheeler, my good friend, joins us at 1:35 today. Dave Spadaro will join us at 2:35. And today, it is official. We welcome in to the Big Ten officially Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA. Saying, well, why are you welcoming them now? I mean, they've been in for a while, right? Wrong. Try to explain this to people. Like, no. Actually, no. They officially got in the conference today because the TV contracts that the Pac-12 had expired at midnight last night, or 11:59 last night. They expired. With it, and when they expired, the grant of rights expired with them at 11:59 last night. Thus, they are allowed to freely make the move without any penalty from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten today. So they are officially in. Now, I want to say this about Oregon and Puddles the Duck. Puddles has been the big hit so far, and I've got to give the Oregon marketing department all the credit in the world for what they're doing. Talk about embracing its new conference. They sent that gigantic inflatable duck to Indianapolis for Big Ten football media days and had it floating in the river. We're here. And then, to cap it off, when Matt Rule at his media day press conference in Lincoln, the duck was there. Not the inflatable one, the mascot duck was there. And pretended to be asking questions, but the duck, of course, doesn't talk. Mascots don't speak. And eventually Nebraska had him removed from the press conference. Like, I have to admit, these people are fun. Sports is meant to be fun. I know for all of us that are in it, it's serious business. Okay, nobody knows that more than I do. Why do you think I go to all the practices I go to? I go to all the practices because to me, in my business, it's serious business. But I also have the realization it's meant to be fun. It's okay. Have fun. You're not playing a game. Oregon's out there having a good time with it. Great. And they're in officially as of now. So no more official or unofficial waiting for them. And now everybody moves forward. It's not really met with a lot of fanfare. I mean, in fact, if you even go online to look at the Big Ten website, I don't even think it's on the Big Ten website. I thought they'd do something on it. Let's see, big10.org. I think everything's about the conference championship. Yeah. The basketball sites. And they got some stuff about the Olympics and blah, blah, blah. That's fine. Broadcast schedule for men's soccer, women's soccer, field hockey, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, but today's the day they're actually in. So the wait is over for them. It was going to be August. But actually, it's midnight tonight. My apologies. Actually, midnight tonight. So 11:59 tonight. So tomorrow that's why they'll do a story. It'll be tomorrow because it's the second, not the first. But they'll be, officially in, which is great. The wait will be over. Now, they did announce that the basketball tournament sites are out. Now, for the women, they'll play in Indianapolis this year, Indianapolis next year. So 25, Indianapolis, 26, Indianapolis, 27, they'll go to Las Vegas. And then in 28, for the first time ever, they're going to take the tournament to Detroit, to the home of the Pistons of the Red Wings, Little Caesars Arena, Detroit, where they had the NCAA Wrestling Championships a few years ago. The men, and I told you back in March, by the way, because I didn't think it was some sort of guarded secret, that the 25 championship was going to be in Indianapolis. 26 will go back to the United Center in Chicago. 27 back to Indianapolis. And then the men in 28 go to Las Vegas. So. And it'll be the 14th time the men are going to Indianapolis. Chicago gets it for the 12th time in 26. And then Las Vegas for the first time in 28. Now, the vast majority of the women's tournaments have been in Indianapolis. I know one year they had it in Grand Rapids. They had it at Hoffman Estates in Chicago one year. But most of them have been in Indianapolis on the women's side. Men's side's been moved around a lot more. The men have been at Madison Square Garden. They've been in Washington, Minneapolis, Chicago, Indianapolis. But now they're going to add in Las Vegas, which we told you a long time ago that was going to be the move. At some point, go to Las Vegas. Not to Los Angeles, but Las Vegas. Hey, you're going to take 15 schools someplace. Take them someplace fun. Why not? Let's go to Vegas. So that's it. So they got all that. Whoops. There we go. So they made that announcement. Football. I have nothing really to add about the two players that are not practicing right now on defense. James will talk about this on Saturday. Now, he's not going to say much about it. There really isn't much he can say. He may add a little bit of context as to whether it's an open-ended suspension or whether they've got some parameters around it. He may add that context to it. Or he may say nothing about it. But, Jamel Lyons and Kavion Keys did not practice yesterday. So, what does this do? Well, depth-wise, linebacker, when you're playing essentially four linebackers, which is what Penn State's doing. I'm talking about two starters, two backups. It's King backed up by Elsdon. It's Rojas backed up by DeLuca. Okay? Keys was third in that grouping. Third. But you still have Tamir Robinson. Now, Wiley's out. And Wiley, I think, he would have played. I talked to him yesterday. He told me he's feeling better by the day, which is good news. So that's where he is. I mean, but Tamia Robinson was out there yesterday, and so I did mention last week, and actually this week, how important depth happened to be. So this is a depth piece. Now, at defensive end, everybody knows that Line's one of those guys that's going to play. There's no getting around it. He put himself in that kind of position. Abdul Carter, of course, is there, but he also plays some linebacker. Denai Dennis Sutton is there. Amin Vanover is there. And let's not forget the return of Smith Vilbert being there. And having Smith Vilbert back is important to what we're talking about here. He becomes an important component in all of this as a player out there in the field. They have that. Now you got the young guys as well. Empoy, Harvey, and others. And we'll see how they play out as this camp goes. Let's see how the next 2 to 2.5 weeks goes. Okay? That's going to be one of the, that depth piece with young players. Let's see how that goes. And then offensively, I thought they were off to a good start yesterday. Again, there's a lot of installs going on right now. And Andy and Tom and Justin as coordinators all put in installs in the spring, and we're moving forward. But there's no matter who it is, you could have coordinators that were all over the place with you and be with you on your staff for years and years and years. You're always doing installs. And remember, the key on install is that the veterans have to lead the young players on installs. This is how we do it. This is how we practice. This is how we go about our business. This is how we make it, how it gets done. And that's so early in camp, you're always doing install reviews so everybody's on the same page. Because you have to remember, some new players are being added in. They need the installs. And the veterans need to be reminded. So you do that. Okay. And that early in camp, you'll do that while moving forward with some other things you want to do. But what these mean, what length they happen to be, I can't answer it. What happened, can't answer that, don't know. And I do know it's something that's not new, but that's about it. And that's day one. That's day one. Day two is today, but then they have an off day tomorrow. Now you're asking, well, what are they getting an off day for? No. Remember, they're all still in class. They have to have an off day. Then they'll go Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then they're off Wednesday. So the day we're playing the Purdy tournament, no practice. James understood we had the Purdy tournament, so. So, what kind of answers we get Saturday at Media Day about this, it's up to James to talk about it because the players, no player should talk about it. They're not in charge. No player should talk about it. The coordinators will just look over and they'll talk about working around it. Tom Allen will talk about working around it. But it's up to James to address it, and to what extent he addresses it, that's his call. That's his call. And also maybe to what extent he's allowed to talk about it, too. We'll take a break. Puddles the duck. Welcome, Puddles. They sent it to the Nebraska press conference. That's just too good. And they threw him out. Here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by NIL Game Changers, Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
This half hour of the show being brought to you by Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, life, business, boat, motorcycle, RV. You have a multitude of insurance needs. The pros, just great people. Handle all of them. Make sure you're fully insured and work like heck to make sure that you save money, because customer service means everything to them. And we congratulate them on the Purdy Memorial Golf Tournament at the Susquehanna Valley Country Club, benefiting the Greater Susquehanna Valley YMCA. Be another great fundraiser. All right, time now for one of my favorite segments, and that is Wheels. Chris Wheeler, how are you, sir?
One of my favorite times, anytime, Steve, of course, is being able to speak with you and your listeners and all that. So I'm good. I got back from Florida about 3 weeks ago after 6 months down there. So I'm settling in here and playing a different golf course.
Yeah, Jack Ham and I played Sunny Anna yesterday. So
nice.
Oh yeah, very nice. So this is actually a business question. I want to start with this. Mike Gorman retired as the TV voice of the Celtics after 43 years. And he tells a story about his first game with the Celtics. And he walks in, and like any young broadcaster, he has all this preparation. And preparation is important, no question about that. And he walks in, and Tommy Heinsohn looks at him and says, "What's all that?" He goes, "Well, those are my notes." And Heinsohn took them, and he picked them up and dumped them in the garbage can. He says, "Well, let's just do the game. Let's talk about what we see." So, Chris, you were always prepared. How important was it, though, in the end that you just talked about what you saw?
Well, you hit it right on the head, Steve. You have to be prepared. I mean, we have to know when we're doing the game, not only our club, but who the other team is and who the 25, now 26 guys are in their dugout and how their bullpen matches up and all those kind of things, and even more so nowadays, I would think. But we always knew that kind of stuff. I mean, Richie Ashburn could get away with it and say, "Who's that guy?" And then we would tell him, and people would laugh, when they get him. but that was all part of the deal. But we couldn't get away with that sort of stuff. Yes, you can't plan things. I mean, you can write down something that maybe it may work later on, or if you get into 10-1 game in the first inning and you're losing, those kind of things. But no, Tommy Heinsohn, that was really, really, really good advice. So that was one of the first things I told Tim McCarver when he and I started working together. He would write down a lot of stuff and things to get in and all, and I basically said to him just what we're talking about right now. You're there to tell people what you see with your expertise. You sat behind home plate for all those years and observed the game, and you know the game, and you can explain the game, and you're going to get better and better at it. So don't try to force anything. A joke, a one-liner, a word. He used to love words. He wanted to put a word, put a little verbiage in there. I told him one time, I said, "Timmy, you ate dirt for a living for 20 years. Let me do the words." and the look on his face, I can still see it. But that's such a great point by Tom Heinsohn. I totally agree with that.
Well, what's interesting, and this is why I tell my sports broadcasting class, that you have to tell the audience things that they know what it means. They know what ERA means. They know what strikeout, to walk ratio means. They don't know what WAR means. They don't know in football what QBR means, quarterback rating, because nobody knows how to calculate it. Okay?
Yeah.
This isn't an algebra class. This is like sports. I got two eyes. I can see he's good.
I'm so happy that I got out of there before they had to do a lot. I was down the ballpark the other night and was hanging out with the guys, and Scott Fransky, Larry Anderson, Tom McCarthy, Johnny Kruk, and all them. Yep. And they were. I said to them, "How do you do all this stuff nowadays?" And Scott Fransky was so good. As you know, terrific radio broadcaster.
Yep.
He basically said, look, we have to pay attention to this kind of stuff, and I work it in once in a while. He said, but it really has to mean something, and basically exactly what you just said. It has to be something you can explain without a degree in calculus. And that's the way he does the game. And, of course, he has Larry there sitting beside him acting like, he didn't get out of second grade. That's part of his act, which is funny. And he's very smart, too, Larry Anderson. So is Johnny Kruk, and they try to act, play the stooge role. But, those guys, they're not going to work in a lot of that sort of stuff. And the play-by-play guy, as you know, Steve, is more has to do more of that than the analyst. But I thought Scott's answer was right on target.
Yeah. No, I just said talk to people in their language. Don't try to force language on them. I said, what does WAR mean? I said, what, Mike Trout gets hurt and the guy isn't as good as he is? I got it.
Yeah. Really?
I got it.
No kidding.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm in shock. So we talked about that. Here's the other part. This is where experience comes into play. It's 162 games. So let's get to the current Phillies team. You and I both know every team in baseball, whether it's high market teams with a lot of money like the Dodgers, the Yankees, whatever, they all hit a slump, right? And you see it over and over. The Phillies are in a slump right now, right? And they're in a slump. There's no getting around it. But it's also 162 games. It's not unexpected. It's just frustrating for everybody because they don't want to see it.
No, it's frustrating for everybody. When they got off to that great start, and I'm around people down in Florida. More, I was down there because they can't blame me, but it started more or less since I got back here. But and I said, well, it's nice that they're getting up to 20-some games over 500 because you're going to have that stretch when you're 10 under 500 or something like that, and you should be able to weather. Now, this is a bad one they're in right now. There's no doubt about it. They've been playing a lot better teams. And the bottom line is, you did a lot of baseball. When you pitch, you don't hit. When you hit, you don't pitch. And they're kind of in that syndrome right now. And it's very, very difficult when you're in one of these things. When a Harper, his player of the month in May and June, and then is awful in July, and Turner all of a sudden can't get on base, and those kind of things. Your big boys have to do it for you. It's nice to fill in a little bit at the trade deadline. They did a good job with that. But if your stars aren't stars, and Harper even said that the other day, well, you got a problem. And they have to what I thought was, having been through this, and having been through these things, one of the best things they could do, not this long road trip, that's not good, but get on that plane yesterday, go to Seattle, have an off day, go out, play golf, have dinner, go walk the fish market or something like that, and just take a deep breath and say the world's not ending, let's go get them again. And whether or not they do, I don't know. But I think that came at a good time to just get away for a while.
Yeah, I mean, and exactly right. Just get away and just like, okay, we went up, okay. And then you start and you take, let's win the next one. Not the series. The series takes care of itself. Win the first one. Right now, let's win the second one. Hey, now we won the series. Because what have they lost now? 6 consecutive series or something like that?
Yeah, they can't win the first game of a series. That's what they had done all along, was win the first game of a series, and never hadn't been swept until the Yankees got them these last 3 games. So, a lot of negatives right now, no doubt about it. And, of course, our area is not prone to emotional highs and lows. You know that. So, 1 minute you're on the moon, and the next minute, the parade, what day is the parade, and the next minute the parade's off. Yeah. So, but that's what it is of being an East Coast sports fan, especially baseball fan in this area. And The fans are great. They sell the place out every night. But it's very emotional one way or the other, and you can't react in baseball the way you do in football because it can be over real fast in football. In baseball, you have time to straighten out and right the ship.
Charlie Manuel was always a bastion of baseball wisdom for you to talk to. So when they would go through something like this, they're all different. What would he tell you about how to handle it and how he handled it?
Well, his way of doing it was not to be overbearing. He might sit there and complain to me about this guy can't play or why do I have to, that sort of stuff. But with the media, with his team and everything, he would go through the clubhouse once in a while, and he was funny too. He'd make some kind of a funny off-color remark to somebody or slap somebody on the back, and always try to pump him up without looking like he was a cheerleader and a rah-rah guy. He had a great feel for that. One of his greatest statements, Steve, he used to say, "Know thyself." Yeah. And I used to think, wow, does that apply to not only sports but life and relationships and so many things. So I think the best thing about him was he kept everybody calm, or he did his best to keep everybody calm during the good times, and and let them during the bad times, and let them just enjoy themselves in the good times. He was a master of that. Everybody wanted to come to the ballpark and play for him, and it worked.
There were not expected to be any massive, earth-shattering deals at the trade deadline, and that's exactly what happened. In the end, though, did the Phillies make a couple of subtle deals that you felt that can help the ball club the last 2 months?
Yeah, I think Hayes will help them. Austin Hayes, the guy, the right-handed. We need a right-handed hitting outfielder, and he just missed 2 home runs yesterday. Would have changed that game completely. Hit a home run the night before. Mm-hmm. And he played center field in the American League. Was an all-star center fielder, so he certainly can play left field. And I thought Estevez was a very good pickup for them from the Angels because they really kind of needed a guy late in the game where you didn't. Well, you weren't hiding behind the couch when you came into the game and peeking around the corner, that sort of stuff. And those guys, and they were getting to have a little bit too much of that. So he's been good. He's been good for that. He's had two appearances. Now there hadn't been, the other night. They're both in close games. He came in tie game the other night and a 1-run game yesterday, losing. But still, he went in, got him up and down for the most part. So I think those two moves were good. They didn't give up a lot off their major league roster. The 2 kid pitchers they gave up, I had seen them. Now that I'm down in Florida so much, I see the Threshers play a lot in Clearwater. So I see a lot of these guys, and I know them. And I saw both of them pitch. I can't tell you, Alderweireld and right-hander. I can't. Anyway, they're both really good prospects, but they're prospects. Who knows? Yeah. It's like when you sign a 4-star recruit, and the 3-star recruit's better. Who knows? They're all prospects at one time. They didn't get recruited unless they're a prospect. So that's kind of the way that is with that. And you got to win right now because a lot of these players they're in their window. They're in their window of their prime, and you can't sit around thinking I can't worry about an A-ball pitcher or a double-A pitcher if I can do something to win right now.
Wheels, here's the best example I can give of the prospect you just don't know. Penn State had the 3 terrific wide receivers from 2005 to 2008. Deion Butler, Jordan Norwood, Derek Williams, right? Williams was the 5-star of all 5-stars, National Player of the Year. Deion Butler was a walk-on from Woodbridge, Virginia. Walk-on. And it started out at corner, and then after a season at corner where he redshirted, was moved to wide receiver. And Jordan Norwood was a gray shirt who didn't enter until January after his recruiting class. They all ended up in the NFL. Okay.
Yeah, they weren't bad.
Right.
Boy, they were good.
But how diverse in terms of prospect number can you possibly be?
Look, there's no exact science to sports. Look, when Bryce Harper's coming up, he's going to be a great player. Every once in a while, you're going to see one of those guys. A-Rod. Sure. We could go on with some names. But for the most part, they are prospects. And when you try to play the game at the college level, division level that Penn State plays at in the Big Ten, or try and play. Look, anybody that gets into Major League Baseball is really good. A lot better than we were when we were kids. And I understand fans sit there and say, "Oh, he stinks. He's terrible." Well, he's not. Maybe he's not a great Major League player, but he's a heck of a player at one time. So, trying to take a prospect. And in baseball, it's the hardest thing in the world to do because you're trying to project a 17, 18, 19-year-old into a 21, 22-year-old man. Well, think what you try to do now when you try to do that with your own family. You're trying to project those kind of things, let alone trying to project an athlete. So baseball is very, very difficult that way.
All right, it's your turn. All right. Yeah, I'm not going to bring you on and not let you ask questions.
One thing I forgot to mention, that when you mentioned Charlie, I want to say I think Rob Thompson's very similar.
Yes.
I've gotten to know him a little bit, and everybody around him. He's very much the same way as Charlie, very stable, very calm, and lets them play. So I think they're in good hands right now when they're going through this sort of thing. So that's just my opinion.
Yep.
All right. Receivers. Where are we with receivers? Because that's obviously been a problem the last few years.
All right. Okay. How often when you've gone to Clearwater or you've gone to a game and a guy can play, but you got to see him do it in a game, right? Right? It's the consistency part. In other words, he's got the talent. Penn State receivers have the talent. Clifford's a good player. Wallace is a good player. Fleming's a good player. Saunders is a good player. Evans is a good player, right? I want to see what I see in practice. And I see a lot of really good things in practice, Chris, and translate into a game consistently. It's the consistency part translating into a game. Because I think they've got the talent to do it. It's because I see it. Now I want to see it in a game. And I think we'll see it in a game this year. And I think having Singleton and Allen as part of the pass game to go with the tight ends is also going to be an important component.
Does it help them in practice if they go up against really good competition on defense?
Absolutely, because they'll do good on good every practice. It's not going to be every single period. I think it's one of the fantasies of what people practice, what happens in practice. But you have 3 to 4 segments during the course of it that are good on good, and plus there are one-on-ones that they have to play all the time, and those are always competitive periods. So they're helped exponentially by doing that.
Yeah, and the other thing that everybody wants to know, and you're so close to it and you see it, they had a lot of changes in coordinators, in offense and defense. That's a lot and special teams. That's a lot to go through, I would think, in one off season. So what are you seeing with that?
Well, with that, having the spring helped. I think that made a big difference. To me, it's almost like that period of time, say a team changes in September in baseball, and they keep the guy. You at least now, that guy now has a better feel on personnel. They have a better feel on him. That's what the spring was about. Everybody has a better feel for everybody. Andy, Tom, Justin, on the players that they're working with. Conversely, the players with them and the system they want to put in. So they're not starting from square one. They did not start from square one on the first day of camp. They were able to get out of the gate and review install instead of actually doing install, because that was already done during the spring. And I think that's helped a lot. You can see the philosophies come into play. Tom's, as we all know, Tom wants to play a lot of 2 linebackers like he did at Indiana. Doesn't mean he can't play 3 once in a while, because he does. You see how Andy tries to create space out there to get guys open and so forth. So, more motion that's happening out there. So I think those are all, to me, positive changes. Now, Manny left and went to Duke. I mean, James wasn't making that change. That change was made because a guy got a head coaching job. But I think it's going to work out really well. These guys are pros.
I know you love to talk or talk about all the time about how much running backs and all nowadays get in the passing game, as you just said. Can all this thing what they're talking about making more space for people help Drew Allar?
It's going to. I think it's going to have to because I would like Drew was 59.8 last year, so just about 60%. I think if you take the 25 touchdowns, the 2 interceptions, and that you get that pass rate to about 64, 65%, now you got something. Because some of that stuff that is around with the backs and so forth, well, that makes a defense react to that. And when they react to it, then you can hit big plays. Aha. And I think that's where and Drew's also going into his second year as a starter, and that's really important because there's now not a speed he has not seen before.
I hear you talk all the time in football about stretching the field, and it just seemed like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know football like you guys do, but I try to pay attention and observe. But it just didn't seem like they stretched the field, and teams were worried about them going deep the way they had done in other years. I mean, is there anything to that?
Oh, there's a lot to it, Chris, and I think it's one of the reasons why Andy's here. Because Andy researches big plays. He wants on Sunday from the video guys. Give me a breakdown on the NFL and college big plays. I just want to see them across the country. Right? I want to see what they did, how they got to it. And because he's always looking for that. So big plays, those explosive plays are plays that teams need to win games on the college level. James is a huge proponent of it. Andy's a huge proponent of it, and I think that's going to be an important part going forward. But you set up your big plays. It's just like, hey, let's go back. I'm just going to throw a big play. No, you got to set it up. And, sometimes you have to play a little bit of chess to finally make the big move. And that's what I think Andy does. He plays a little bit of chess to then set up the big move late where suddenly out of nowhere, your queen is gone. All right, so Chris.
Hey, before we get finished, we didn't talk about defense at all. Are they still real athletic on defense?
Oh man, they can run. I mean, that's the whole thing. This group can run, and that's the other part too. Is that as people saw in the spring about playing the three safeties, and Jalen Reed is the guy that can be the flex guy, which allows Zakee Wheatley and KJ Winston to be out there. Well, when you have 5 defensive backs out there, you have 5 guys automatically who can run, right? And Rojas can run. The linebacker, Rojas can run. Oh, I mean, he's terrific out there. DeLuca knows how to play. You can play with defensive ends who can drop into coverage because they can run. Carter is a chess piece that you can move to defensive end, linebacker, and he can run. So, the ability, speed's the name of the game now. Guys that used to be safeties are now outside linebackers. Outside linebackers are now defensive ends. It's all about speed. Hey, I could do this all day.
I have one more. I got one more.
Okay,
real
you
quick.
Can sneak in. Go ahead, sneak in one more.
I want to say it's really nice. I know the O-line's better, but I think it's really cool that there's being some recognition for my favorite offensive lineman, Sal Wormley.
Sal Wormley, okay? Your guy, okay?
My guy.
Okay? Your guy, okay? We need somebody to talk to Mom. Wheels, right?
Well,
Sal is in his 6th year, and he's a good player.
Yeah. Well, that was fun that day, getting to being on the sidelines with you and Brian and my friend Brian, as you know, from Clearwater, and a lot of the Penn State people, and getting to meet Sal that day and his mom and all. It was fun having that conversation. So I've kind of followed him since then, obviously.
Well, every time I do the lineup, I think of you when I mention him.
That's great.
my good friend, thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Me too, Steve. It's always great. I mean, I love talking to you anytime, and I still want to try and get up there sometime. We'll talk about that off the air.
Hey,
see if I can figure out something.
Well, you know what? Yeah, I can always go down and see you too. So let's figure this out.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
Yeah, I would like to make it work. It's always a pleasure. Anytime, I'm here for you.
Thanks, Chris. You're the greatest.
All right, bud. Okay, take care.
Brought to you by Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com on News Radio 1070 WKOK.